Hello, hello, hello.
Hey there.
How's everybody? Long weeks here at the shack and up in the snowy north. Oh,
Yeah.
let's see. Let's scroll through here. I called myself looking over them, but just in case I missed anything that we need to address right out the gate. What's up, Chris? Miss Sharon, old guy. Jim Pitts from Wichita. Midnight Sunworks. Keith. Miss Sharon again. Mark Bingham. Steve. Mike Dole. Eventually, I'm going to have to quit doing this. There's just so many people. Victor Simerson. Vince Snowbucks. Tom Curick. Nipa's back. What's up, Nipa? How are you? Brandon M. Thank you, thank you. Brandon. Yeah. Roger Court says hi. He's from North Illinois, I'm guessing. Aldrich Custom Crafts is back in the house. Chuck Peterson from Central Florida. See, we got quite a bit of folks in Florida down there. I don't know if that's
Hmm.
if it's a coincidence or what. Oxford. I wonder if that's not Oxford, Alabama, is it? Surely not. Crafting with Gene, good evening to you. Uh, South Texas, Mark, how are you? Soaking in the rays. Sunny Space Coast, Florida. See, lots of Floridians. Uh, Samuel, Cornbread Craft Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. Uh, Dale, how are you? Central Florida. See, it's Florida up in the house tonight.
I'd love to get to the uh, the Space Coast area of Florida sometime.
Yeah. Let's see. Boomer, Hobo, what's up, Hobo? How are you, sir? Kai from Montgomery, Alabama. How are you, sir? Tim Hensley. Hello, Craig. Or is that Greg? Greg. Sorry. My wife says I need glasses, but I don't. Uh, Jim Pitts. How are you, sir? Daniel Thomas. Okay, it's a bunch of people, guys. So it's getting to where there's more folks than I could say. So if you're new and or and you want us to recognize you, then maybe we should start something where they like do something in the comments because there's a whole bunch of people that that are here all the time, and I don't want to overlook anybody, but I don't want to spend 30 minutes going through the list either. So it can it can
So
be
we're gonna have
very
a
time consuming.
new member hazing, is what you're saying?
Well, I don't know if not a hazing, not an initiation. Just if you're new, let us know where you're from. Maybe we could put put something in the comments. We'll have to work on that. There's got to be a
Yeah.
way.
Well,
There's got to be a way. So
well,
I see a couple of people asking about your trip. And since you've had a lot more adventures than I have past couple of weeks, won't you bring us up to speed on what's up with
well,
Steve? And I've got some hiccups and
I,
heartburn and all that going on.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you didn't you just fall down or something? I mean, they might be concerned about that with you.
Fall down.
Yeah, you took a trip, you fell. That's a really bad joke that just landed really flat, as if someone just
Oh,
fell. Anyway, yeah, well, I am home. I was not last week because we were cozied up by your lasers there.
yeah,
Um,
somebody was busy sticking stickers everywhere.
I, I mean, you got little shop elves or something that just felt the place needed a little sprucing up. So, um, yeah, I took the trip hung out at Clack's place. Got down there last Friday and hung out till mid afternoon on Tuesday, and hopefully everybody caught up with various videos and shorts and fun stuff we were doing there. So we got to meet May May and a few other people at a couple events there on Saturday, and did some projects with. We did that project for her. Did you ever get that back to her there?
Yes, yes, I took it by. She wasn't
Cool.
there, but I did leave it with one of her ladies who claimed she was going
Cool.
to keep it, but May May said she would get it back from her. So, but yeah,
So
that did get delivered.
yeah, we got that done. And worked on a portable setup for my A24, which worked out nice. And as a matter of fact, I've gotten used to like just carrying it around that way. It's a little more portable than maybe I let on in the video. So yeah, that's going to be a nice little portable setup. So if people missed that, definitely check out my channel on that. And we got some sawmill time.
Yeah,
Went through a few blades because of treasures we were finding.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to spend a day sharpening blades.
Yeah, but yeah, we cut up. Well, you had a chunk of red oak on there that you needed to finish slicing, and that went pretty well. But we grabbed a magnolia log that had been hanging around for a while and tried cutting through that, and kept finding some fun metal chunks in there that don't mix well with saw blades. So
Yeah, yeah. I was starting to get irritated because I was like, man, what is going on with this tree? And after we started hitting nails, because my blades just kept going crazy, and then after we started hitting nails, we went back and looked through the wood, guys, and like every cut we made, cut through a nail. Like I don't know. Apparently, this tree was getting assaulted with nails for 50 or 60 years because there was nails from the center all the way out to the edge, and we were cutting through them. I think we wound up, was it 4 blades? I think we went through, and it was just one right behind the other, behind the other. We finally just
what?
said, okay, we've got enough wood off of it. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think this piece, but this is one of the pieces we cut off there. And so I did grab a few pieces to bring home, and
yeah,
I'll be getting those set up so air dry for a little while, and then we'll be working out. I'll figure out some sort of project. I've got a couple of boards that are closer to 2 inches. This one's about 1 inch, so I'll be making something out of those once they stabilize and get fairly dry, and so we'll look forward to that. But yeah, it was kind of fun. We eat treasures and all in the wood. It was kind of fun to check out. We don't have magnolia trees this big up here. The ones we have are more just like shrubbery size, so their trunk might get to be 6 inches in diameter. They don't get that big up here. So that was kind of the thought process for us milling up that log, is it was something that I don't have as much access to. So I did bring some stuff down for Clack to work with. We played with the one for May May, and then you made a dish out of the other,
yeah.
or part of the other.
Yeah, I was just playing around and made like a little. Brady's got some kind of decorative stuff in it. Got it sitting on the table, but made like a little bowl type thing just to see what I could do with it, and it turned out pretty well. But yeah, Midnight Sun, when you're I say videoing and you're in a kind of trying to get things done or whatever. I didn't think about it, and I told Steve I should have metal detected it before we started and before we put it on the mill, because I have a loading dock before you set it on the mill that's all wood, and that way I can run the metal detector over it, and if it goes off anywhere, I know there's a nail in there. But because we were trying to hurry through it, I took the tractor and put it straight on the mill, and didn't put it on the loading dock and check it for nails before I did. And when we did start trying to run the metal detector, it was kind of is it a nail, or is it actually because it's over this crossbar? And we had actually had that discussion until it went shriek, and then we're like, okay, it was a nail. But yeah, we cut a few corners. It cost me a little bit, but the good news is I've got my own sharpener, I've got my own setter, and I can actually sharpen those blades to where they'll cut better than they did brand new anyway. So other than an hour or two of my time, it's not that big of a deal. We'll get it straightened out. But it was some pretty wood, and even if I had have known there were nails in it, we'd have still went ahead and cut it up because it was too much magnolia for me to just let it go to waste. I don't know if y'all priced magnolia slabs that are 16 inches wide. I think that stuff was. Did we wound up is 16, 17 inches wide?
Here, let me check quick.
I want to say we wound up. We just squared it up, but
Well, 14.
Okay, so it's about 14 inch wide slab of magnolia. And like Steve says, you don't find magnolias that big everywhere. They're few and far between. So if you price that 14-inch piece of magnolia, it would be kind of pricey. So it's worth a few sharpenings, in my opinion, to get that cool wood. But
Yeah.
the nails, I think, contributed to the black heart in it, but it made it look cool. So,
Yep. So, but yeah, I was supposed to go on down to Georgia, and I did head over there for the airplane event, but I was only there about a day and a half, and I needed to head home, unfortunately, a little bit early. So, but I mean, fortunately, that did get me home ahead of some of the storms we've been having here in the central U.S., which I hope none of our viewers are in that area. There's been some pretty nasty storms from Oklahoma up through Nebraska. So I kind of skirted around those both on the way down and back up. And glad to be safe back at home. Took a little bit to rest, but today was out here trying to get things reorganized and trying to get caught up on the A70. Uh, Hopefully, do some editing tonight and get that out tomorrow. A little sneak preview. This is a chunk of cherry that I had cut off on a neighbor's tree that they cut down. So this is about 3/4 inch, and you can tell on the edge it struggled just a little bit on the very ends, but that was easily just snapped apart. So it's a powerful little beast. Being able to cut through some harder wood like this, and I know we showed in the video cutting through some 1/2 inch plywood for those corners and such. So definitely an interesting laser, and I need to get it into an enclosure and start using it a little bit more. But going to get the initial video out here hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll move into more fun stuff with it.
yeah, I think Sam wants to know if you got to meet Steve on a stick.
Yeah, Steven a stick and I had some words. I told him if he's gonna be hanging out in the shop, he's got to be doing a little advertising for me. So you may see some things in videos, him doing his work.
Yeah, well, he's just kind of chilling over in the corner right now. But yeah, Philip, he did come down and go to the self whatever thing there. That's true. Chris, if you'll pay the shipping, man, I'll send it to you. I got plenty of red oak now. You can ask Steve. I cut that stuff at
Yeah,
4/4, and we cut up. It was 16 by 16, I think, when we started, and I cut it. I dropped. I'm guessing I probably got. You take away the kerf, I probably got 15 boards, 1 inch thick out of it, and yeah. So they're in the kiln drying as we speak. That way I'll have them for like signs and small stuff. Now I do plan with, especially with oak. I do plan those slabs, even though they're 16 inches wide. There's going to be a lot of them I'm going to have to rip because they're going to check, and they're going to check really hard. It's going to wind up being two 8-inch boards before it's all said and done. But if I can get 50% of it to stay together while it's drying, I'll be happy. So, but
yeah.
but we'll see how it goes. I don't know what the humidity is in there yet, but it's been pulling water pretty heavily since me and Steve put those in there the other day. Let me look
I
and
can
see
imagine.
let me see what it is in there. It is currently 28.5% relative humidity inside there. So pretty dry. Pretty dry. Uh, that has to, I have to let that sit for, I'm going to leave them in there for 2 or 3 weeks just to see. I don't have the heat on right now. Just using the heat that is created by the dehumidifier running inside that closed in environment. It's 96.6 degrees in there with 28% relative humidity. So if I turn the heat up, turn the heat on, it'll heat up to about 150 or so. And I'll do that the last 2 or 3 days, and it's in there just to make sure I kill all the funguses and the bugs and stuff. Just got to make sure there's no
Sounds
cats in
good.
there when I do that. That's a phobia, man. You don't know because those cats like to jump in there, and when I leave the
Mhm.
door open while I'm loading and unloading it, and so I have to like slap the wood and make all kind of noise to make sure there's no cats in there. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm scared to death I'm gonna shut one of them up in there, and that wouldn't be good.
No, that'd be quite the sauna for them. They wouldn't enjoy.
Oh, it'd be
But
dry, very fast.
um, Yeah, not to get too far behind on questions. Got Andrew's asking kerf question. Will the kerf on my xTool P2 be the same for all material, or do I need to consider melting with acrylic versus wood? Yeah, there's going to be some slight variations based on both the thickness as well as the type of materials. And so it all has to do with how efficient the burn is. Thicker the material you get, you're going to have a little bit more of a kerf, and sometimes it'll be slightly angled because you got to remember the laser beams are not like they're not just straight. They're kind of hourglass shaped, so they kind of come in and out of focus. And yeah, thicker material, you're going to have a little bit extra, like usually a little extra burning to get through the full stuff, or more dense materials. So it's generally going to be fairly close, but you're going to have variations. And so if you're doing tight fitting materials or inlays, that's where you're going to definitely want to run some tests on your material before you run your production stuff.
Yeah. Now, I think what he's saying is acrylic going to have a wider kerf because of melting. If you're running the correct settings, it should be like a 3 millimeter piece of acrylic and a 3 millimeter piece of wood should be relatively close. I mean, there may be slight, like microscopic differences, but as long as you're running the right setting, I, I, I don't I don't see a big difference in mine. If anything, it seems like the acrylic may actually be a little snugger than wood because it
So
expands and contracts with heat.
yeah, well, yeah, and the more you run over it, it kind of repolishes the side, and so acrylic probably won't be as bad as wood. Wood's going to be where you're probably going to see more of a deviation because it burns and it kind of just burns away. So, like I say, it's not going to be major, but there is going to be some variances between different materials. So it's always best to run a test and just double check, if you need those real tight fitting areas.
Sup, Cody? How are you, sir? Uh, I sent you somebody today. They were asking about my bits I used on that bowl, how I got it so smooth. I told them I didn't do it. It was Cody.
um, Mark's commenting, I've been getting some mild serrations cutting through 3 millimeter basswood plywood with the 70-watt system. Can be cleaned up with a couple passes of sandpaper, but curious if y'all have seen that. Uh, I guess depends on what you mean by serrations. There was actually a thread. I think Brian started it in the Facebook group
Mm-hmm.
where he was getting some slight kind of almost like coin edge cutting on some of his material. And I think we've seen that on both CO2s and a little bit on diodes. Um, so it can be something that shows up. If it's random, you might want to, like if it's a fairly consistent pattern, it's probably something with the more of the beam settings and such. But if it's random, you might want to double check that everything's tight, that you're not getting a little bit of a loose bit. Yeah. Okay. So he followed up saying, yeah, coin edge, scalping shape. Yeah, it's not abnormal. You can sometimes play around with your speeds and passes to get it to be less apparent and such. But playing around with a few different lasers, you'll see that appear sometimes.
I think it was at certain speeds it was more prevalent.
Hmm.
So I think it's got something to do with the way the steppers are operating because they're one's moving up and the other one's moving right, and I think you might want to play with your speeds because the test that I did and I think Steve did too, to try to help Brian diagnose it was there was a sweet spot in the speeds that it would show up the worst, and then if you went slower or faster, it wasn't as bad. So
Cody's got us in his earbuds while smoking beer chicken and planting Bermuda grass. I didn't know they let you actually plant grass down there. Get enough
how do you smoke a beer
water to
chicken?
grow that.
What kind of paper? What kind
You've
of
never
paper do you
done
roll? What kind of paper do you roll that up in?
nah, it's like a beer can chicken.
No, I was just joking. Smoke, you get it? Smoking a beer chicken. All right. God,
Well,
see,
you can
my
let it
jokes aren't much
marinate
better.
in beer overnight.
My jokes aren't much better than yours. But yeah. Oh, there you go. Better than the xTool lenses. it's probably just because it's clean and doesn't have any chips. It should be about the same, really. I don't know that there's a better.
Well, yeah, I mean, depending on, I've seen some lenses come with some coatings on there, and I'm of the thought process of if there's a coating on there, that's just extra for the beam to go through. So, but
Yeah.
definitely having a clean, clear lens will make a world of difference on your machine. So I'm glad you got them. I'm glad they're working out okay.
Yeah, Mark's saying the same thing. Seems to be at higher speeds, 70 watt with basswood, have you running fast. Oh, I would imagine if you're cutting 3 millimeter basswood with the 70 watt, shoot, you're probably running 40 millimeters a second. Uh,
Hmm.
that's one of the downsides to if you do plan on cutting really thin material. And I mean, that's part of it. You might want to, if you have a lesser powered machine, it might actually be better to use it so you can go slower, or just turn your power down. Flip it over to
Well, why would
36
you want to
watt.
do that?
Well, I'm just saying if the little marks are bothering him that bad, just
Yeah,
turn the power down, slow down a little bit. Because I think it was at 20 something in hires when I was seeing it the worst the other day.
yeah, it definitely more prevalent in higher speeds. So, you know, check that everything's tight. Check that even like the cover lens, if you got it in there, that's tight. That there isn't any. If you're getting like that kind of that, if you slowly move it by hand and you're getting kind of that pulsing, you know, try to adjust everything to get everything running as smooth as possible. But
Dale said we don't need to quit our day jobs.
I'd love to quit my day job, but I just don't want to go into comedy.
No, I'd starve to death in comedy, I'm afraid. But I would love to quit my day job too, and one day. About to bite the bullet. Click the buy button on there. Well, yeah, Martin. I'll say this: it's a small machine. Keep that in mind. It's small. It's only what 10, 11, 12 watts. But for events, you can ask Steve. That thing at events the other day. I mean, it transitioning from one like engraving a pet tag to doing a dog tag to doing a label or whatever. I mean, it's quick, it's easy, and I like it for that. Uh, I keep it in the shop because sometimes it's quicker for me to use that than it is to roll the fiber over here and set it up. But when I go to events, of course, it's easy to just grab that thing and the power pack and head out the door. So, not a bad machine. So far, I haven't. Everybody told me that if you double press the side button, which I have the little sticker up here, that it'll do the last job. And I don't know if my idea of a double press is the same as theirs because it didn't work for me, but I'm going to go back and see exactly what they consider a double press.
Yeah,
Uh,
it should. Otherwise, they do have a tool for that. But that's if
yeah, I
you're
did see that
doing the
pedal
same
that you were
thing more
talking
than
about
once. So,
too. I did see that
um,
pedal you were
as
talking
far
about. That
as
was pretty cool.
as far as the air purifier, um, this is it. It's not very big. It does hook in through the hose, and then you hook it to the laser via basically a USB-C type cable. So it's nice that it'll turn on and off with the laser, um, but don't expect a lot out of this. They have these pre-filters, and as you can probably see, they get a little clogged up. And then they have this kind of proprietary. It's both a HEPA filter on top, and then there's activated charcoal in there. Um, it it cuts it down on it a bit, but you will plug up these filters pretty quick if you're using it quite often. So I would really reserve it for when you're at events and have to use it, and not use it a whole lot outside of that. Otherwise, it's going to get very expensive in a hurry. So um,
Yeah, I don't have one of those, so you're going to have to be the authority on that.
I like I say, if you're doing events and you want to help minimize the smoke, this will help a bit. But these pre-filters, you can kind of clean them out a few times, and this is what catches the heavy debris. And so when these get plugged up, it stops moving air through here fairly quickly, and it's even worse on the bigger ones. They get plugged up pretty quick as well. So yeah, just take a look at the supplies for this, and if you're going to be using it for on-site stuff, consider it. But also know that it's not going to be 100%, and people still may complain about, I can still smell smoke, and we don't want that at our event or whatever. So, just kind of, I want people to be aware that this isn't going to run and it, feel like, spring breeze coming out of it. You're still going to smell some stuff even through this filter after not a whole lot of use. So, just trying to set expectations for it. So
yeah. Now, if you're going to be engraving stuff at events, the one thing that I would say would probably make that a little more effective is if you're not engraving wood, like the dog tags and stuff we were doing the other day, Steve. They don't give off a whole lot. I mean, they have the little bit of odor, but I think that would be better than if you're engraving wood, because wood, cork, especially cork or leather, you're going to really smell that.
If you're doing light engravings, that'll definitely help. But yeah, I vaguely remember you didn't appreciate the exhaust of my laser blowing right at you with the anodization coming off.
Well, that's when you were over there trying to cut an anodized card, and we had smokestacks pointed at each other across the table here. Now that got a little loud, but now we were cranking them out a lot. So but if you'd had that little box on there, it might not have been as bad, because I think it would last longer doing stuff like that than it would with wood, with all of the glues and the saps and stuff like that coming through it.
Yeah, no, it definitely helps cut down on it, and I've used it at some of the events I've gone to, and just out of kind of courtesy for people, but just be aware that those filters are not cheap, and I would only use it when absolutely need to. So,
yeah. Rose, so far, I will tell you, any laser that I have in this shop so far, the 70 watt, it's a little bulkier, but I run multiple lasers off a 15 amp circuit. Lasers, computer, fans, all that. They don't draw. I would say the 20 to 30 watts is about the same draw as most laptop chargers and stuff. So it's not gonna be extreme. Now, if you start adding fans and other things, you could get on up there. But most household circuits are gonna be rated for 15 amps. And if you're just running one or two machines with not a lot of other tools and stuff, you shouldn't have a problem. But the F1 especially, I think that thing. Have you tried running it off a battery pack yet? Like you've got one of those little. You ran the A24 off of it the other day.
So I was running the Atom Stack A24. I was running the 12 volt fan off the back, and then I was running my laptop off of my portable battery unit, and it was topping out around 200 watts. I'm sure if I was, and that was, I mean, the laptop wasn't pushing hard at that point. So yeah, I mean, you look at the power supplies of these. I suppose I could go look at the P2 power supply, but most of these are using, maybe 100 watt power adapters. So it's like running a shop light. Your toaster runs probably 1,000, 1,500 watts compared to the laser, which is running
most
a quarter or less of that. So
most of your like entry level hair dryers that ladies use pull way more voltage than what these things do.
Yeah, these do not. I mean, any kitchen appliance, it's probably pulling 3, 4, 5 times the power of most of these. So
yeah. I don't have a power pack. What I meant a while ago was the power pack that comes with it, the power adapter. But I do run on my portable shack. I do have a battery backup that I can run everything off of if I'm not using a generator or whatever. I haven't ever tested it, see how long it would run. Steve uses his little rechargeable battery occasionally. That's what I was talking about with him. And you've got a couple of those, don't you?
Well, yeah, I tell you what, if you want to just carry this for a minute or two, I'll go grab that. I can hook up the F1 on the bench there, and we can actually see what it's pulling.
Okay.
So I will be right back.
All right, we'll put you away for a minute. But yeah, so y'all want the answer to how much the F1 pulls. He's got a battery pack that also has like voltage monitoring built into it. So it'll actually tell you how much electricity it is consuming, as well as it'll give you an estimate. And by it's an estimate because it's going to vary depending on the power of the beam and percentage you're running it at. But it'll also give you an estimate of runtime on that battery as well. Oh, yeah, pop. That's what I would recommend if you're going to get one of those purifiers. Just understand it's not. It's the word purifier is a little misleading. It is a filter, and it will filter certain levels of stuff out, but you're still going to notice it, especially if you're, especially like leather or something that has a lot of scent and smell to it. You're still going to notice it. It does take the edge off, and if you're outdoors, and like I said, you're not doing heavy engraving on wood, it would do a good job. So let me get that. Yeah, yeah, nope, Tard. That's what I believe the problem is when the steppers start going so fast. I think it's just part of the software between, like you said, between the software and the hardware. It's just it can't make perfect circles because it's using two linear motions to make a circle. And if you're using two linear motions to try to make a circle, at some point you're gonna see the results of those linear movements. Uh, That's a question. I just ordered a new machine. How would you go about adding a new LightBurn key to an already existing account? Mark, if you already have LightBurn uh, and you already have it installed, all you really have to do is go up here to the license management tab. And what you would do is you could deactivate that license and then activate the other one, or you could just remove that license and add your new license key there. But it's all right here. All you got to do is go over here and hit help, and go to license management. That's where you would change your license for the software without having to uninstall it and reinstall it or anything like that. All you simply do is change it. And I just updated mine the other day, so I got plenty of days left. But mine expired on me the other day as I sat down to go to work, so I had to do those hat patches. Steve. Daniel, if it's real leather, it's gonna smell. It's gonna smell like a cow burning because that's technically what it is. Leather does smell. Now, if you get the leatherette, it's not as odorous as the real thing. Matter of fact, that the last time I did a leatherette patch, I don't even remember noticing any smell. But and I did it on the F1, so which I did have it vented at the time. Yeah, what Chris is saying, if that's what you're asking, Mark, if you have a license for LightBurn on the computer that you're using, as long as if like say if you have Galvo, which I do, I can run as many Galvos or as many diode lasers as I want. If you have, you got as long as you have the license for that specific machine. I haven't run into a limit of how many machines I can run at one time. I have actually ran 5 machines at one time on my LightBurn on my computer here. I actually have little squares set up all over the place running different machines. I was actually running 2 today, doing stove covers and bamboo cutting boards. So it's like every day I'm running 2 lasers at one time. Samuel said he is running coasters and listening to the live. Cool. Yeah, Mark. Yeah, if you do cherry, oak, you can do hickory, black walnut, pecan. Those also smell like somebody's barbecuing. A black walnut has a really, really like it's almost a sweet smell to it, but it smells pretty good. Pop said he runs off the F1 off a Jackery without any problems. I don't have any of those right now because I have the little 2,000 watt inverted generator that I use if I don't have electricity. Whew. Yes, Rose. The voltage input for these things is very, very minimal, because all it's doing is taking that AC and converting it to DC. And now, up until I got the A70, they were all going to 24 volts, but the A70 actually goes up to 36 volts. But the amperage draw on that's nothing for what most household circuits are designed to do. What's up, David Allen? Good name, by the way. Yeah, Jeffrey, the filters are expensive. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I redneck recycle. Uh, I take the filters out of, even like my dust filter up here. I take those things out the first time or two and hit them with the air hose from the opposite direction and clean those babies out and put them back in there. But if you're really having to try to get rid of the smoke, that's not going to work. You're going to have to swap them out. Hobo, you're going to find that epoxy is far, far easier as long as you sprayed it with something to seal the wood before you put the epoxy in there. And if you didn't, then I hope that the wood is a dark wood, because I learned that lesson myself. You have to seal the wood with something and let it set before you put the epoxy in there, or it'll bleed through the fibers of the wood and cause you some little imperfections, which they still look good, but it's not bad. Jeff, typically speaking, like retail, $125 for most designs. If they want something too complex or too big, then there's an upcharge. But I sell them all day long for $125 to the public. To the business that I sell the most of them to, I get $100 a piece for them. And let me show you. That, sir, is 4 stove covers propped up against the toolbox right there that are ready to go out the door. And then I've got another 5 stacked up right there on the CNC that I've got to finish this week. I'll be working on those during the week, getting them finished and getting the handles and the little felt feet and all that put on them. And then, of course, I've got 2 name cutouts that I've done this week. And the CCHS soccer one over there that you see, they asked me if I could make something for a photo backdrop that they could attach to a cloth background. And so that was me testing my theory and making sure that I put enough magnets on the back of it. I used 4 little small rare earth magnets on the big one, and then 3 on the smaller one. And basically the magnets are hot glued to the back of it. And then there's another magnet that comes in from the back. But that was for the local high school's soccer team. They're doing their photos for the end of the year. And there's going to be some Clack Shack swag in the background of all those photos. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I got that name over to the left. That's from my party planner. I'm assuming it's probably going to be for a graduation, seeing as how we're coming up on graduation season. And she does like a lot of graduation parties and stuff like that. But yeah, my cost on those stove covers typically, because I get most of my supplies and stuff, like I buy a panel that does 2 at a time. It's 30 something dollars. So typically speaking, I've got a little over $20, I think, $20 and some change in materials. And like I said, today I built 9, so, or mostly built. So it's not just killer money, but hey, throughout the year, I think last year I'd have to go back and look, but I think I wound up, my total revenue from selling stove covers was $13,000, I think, last year. And that's, like I said, that's just one product. So it keeps the lights on. Anyway, Steve, are you ready to come back? You look like you're ready to come back over there.
I'm almost good. Just getting something set up to do an engraving here. So
Yeah. But I make a lot of stove covers. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I get burnt out on them. I've got it to the point to where, like, there's no guesswork. Like I don't have to measure anything. I've got jigs. I've got jigs for those things. I'll show you. This thing right here. This is the most awesome. This is one of my. This is actually a more recent iteration of my stove cover jig, but you cut the stove cover to 22 and a half by uh, 30 and a half, and then basically you lay it on the table, sit this on top of it, slide it up in there. It has a recess right here. You can actually verify that you have it where it needs to be because the corner of the wood will be sitting right there below this little hole where you can see it. So once you see the corners, and it also, like I said, it tracks inside these little lips. I take a pencil, I mark all these holes. I've got one impact wrench set up with a countersink bit that drills the holes for the screws and countersinks them, and glue it up, put it together, and then I go back with my newly acquired Rockler portable drill press, which is awesome, by the way. And these are the holes for the handle. That's why these are colored. You don't do these until after everything else is glued together because it's got to go all the way through. But then I just mark them both ends and then toss this to the side and go to the next one. And I also have a jig set up on my chop saw that automatically cuts the sideboards to 22 and a half. And my table saw, I've got it set to where I just slide it open until it lines up my little marks. And the only cut I'm having to do right now is the 30 and a half I had to do with skill saw because the way my table saw is configured. But I'm gonna fix that soon. I've been getting some ideas together on building me a table where I can incorporate all my tools into the table. So
Very cool. Well,
all
I've
right,
got this set up if we want to show it real quick.
sure.
All right, so let me switch over here, and maybe we'll do that.
Oh man, xTool sent you a table too.
I take yeah. Well, I was having trouble getting the F1 to connect, so I bumped it up there. So in case it was a battery was blocking the Wi-Fi, but so I've got the F1 sitting on top of the air purifier. Both of them are plugged into the unit, and just sitting at idle. You see over on the right side there, it's showing 18 watts. So I've just got some plywood in here sitting on top of one of your jigs. I've refocused that.
I was fixing to say that jig looks familiar.
So I've got an engrave set up here. We're gonna run it at 100% power just to try to max out everything, and the fan should come on as well. So let's see what it does when it all gears up to full power. So let me get this started. Gotta hit the button. All right. So they're both running. The fan is going. It's doing its engrave. And 97 watts.
So that's less than a 100-watt light bulb.
Here, let me lower this down so it's easier to read there. But that's running at, the laser's running at full power. The fan's running at full power. If I can get that to focus a little better. Maybe. So it's running at about 93 watts, and this is a 1400 milliamp hour battery unit. So it's a little bit bigger than your typical like Jackery 500, but it's at 96% capacity, and it's saying under its current load, it'll run for 13 hours.
Wow.
So if I added my laptop to that, it would probably add at most, I mean, the power supply for this laptop peaks out at 200 watts. So if I was pushing it hard, it would definitely, but the laptop would probably add another, I'm going to say 100 or so watts to that on average. So it's going to drop that down. When I was running the A24, and we'll let that fan spin off. So now you see it kind of goes back to about 19 watts. But when I was running the A24, the laptop, and the exhaust fan on that little enclosure, I was running just under 200 watts total. And that was going to run for close to 8 hours at that range. Now, I have a solar panel that you can plug into it. Depending on where you're at in the light, you can maybe be dumping in 60 to 100 watts of power into it. So if you're in an outdoor event and you've got great sun, you could actually run for quite a while with that recharging the box as well. So
Yeah.
this unit is a little bit bigger than others. When I bought it last year, it was closer to $900. I think right now they had a sale on it. It was right around $500 or $600. And that extra overhead definitely helps out a lot. So something to look at.
Do you have information on that where folks could get one? Because ET said he needs
Yeah.
to get one, but he said it needs it to last around 4. I'm guessing that's supposed to be hours. Uh, so he needs to know a reasonable price unit. And you know a lot more about those because you've had more experience with those. I am actually, after seeing yours down here this past week, I've considered getting me one because it was pretty amazing that it kept the battery charged as long as it did. But typically, when I go to events, I have my little portable shack, and I'm not really required to, I don't need any more battery than what I already have. But I could see where that thing would be neat to have.
So this one right now on Amazon, it is they do have like a lightning sale or something going on. It's $598, which is 40% off. It normally lists for $999.
How much does that one weigh?
It's not light, but let me see here if they have that listed really quick.
I mean, because if you got to tote it a long ways, it might be that they want to get one a little smaller, if it's going to last long enough. But with
Right.
batteries, I would say get one bigger than what you need because, as we all know, batteries over time are going to lose their efficiency, and so just because it lasts 14 hours day one, after a few events, it may not last but 12. So
So the item weight on the listing says 37 pounds.
that's
So
nothing to sneeze at, but it's manageable.
it's not terrible. But yeah, it does take a little bit, but the nice thing is it is going to run a lot longer than some of those other smaller ones. There's a lot of features on them that you can find. Now this one has a lower uh, input power rating to it, so it's not going to quick charge as fast as some of the others. But it definitely, it comes with an AC adapter that you plug it in overnight. It's definitely going to be charged up. You can actually get jumpers to add on. You can add a second battery pack to this one as well. You can run them in parallel to add onto your power. So it really depends on your use, but typically, your laptop and just a laser engraver are like you saw there, it's not going to run a whole lot of power. So unless you're like actively running 8 hours in a day, you're probably going to be pretty good with it. So, yeah, that one, I've had experience with this one and a couple smaller ones. This one has suited me well for a couple trips down. I had it last year when I went down and saw you, and in the car, I run a little DC fridge kind of thing. And then we took a family vacation out west last year as well. They're really handy to have along for just trips and keeping other things going and the other things charged too. So if you're in business and you're doing this on site, I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. DJS is asking a question. I'm only halfway qualified for this one. I want to know, would you recommend the Atom Stack Ace, the 70 watt or the IKEA 70 watt? And I know those machines are like step brother and sister, but you've had experience with the IKEA machines. What's your thought? I mean, you've had a little bit more chance to compare the Atom Stack to IKEA to see what the differences are, but I know we've agreed that they probably coming from the same place.
Well, and Adam Stack has said that IKEA is kind of like their what do they call it? Their top of the line brand or whatnot. But I don't know how well they're connected, if they are truly the same company or not. I had some issues with my IKEAs on getting the autofocus working consistently. Now, this isn't their latest 70 watt unit. These were their older units, and they were very similar to the Acer L2 series. I've been much happier with this Atom Stack 70 watt unit than I was with the earlier IKEA machines. Just in the fact that I think it's built better, and the autofocus, once you get it set up right, is working consistently for me. Now, the thicker material you get, or if you have an elevated honeycomb above the base of what the laser's sitting on, you will start running into problems where it wants to travel a certain distance before it triggers off the auto focus really well. So part of it is going to be your setup, but yeah, I feel I've gotten better response out of Atom Stack when I've run into some issues than IKEA. So I guess I'll put it at that.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak to the IKEA machines. I've never had one in the shop, never got to use one, so I have no idea. I know looking at Steve's and some of the conversations we've had, they're very similar.
Yep.
Mark, I do not put borax on anything that I do. I've tried that early on. Certain woods will turn yellow if you put borax on them. And if you do anything to an engrave that has borax on it before you spray it with clear coat, the black's going to fly away or get on the wood and stain the wood. Or I prefer not to. That's just me. I have learned using focus, air assist, and speed and power to get black engraves or dark engraves without all that. So I don't use it. I've got a jar of it somewhere around here that I mixed up and I used it like once or twice. And after it stained a couple of pieces of wood that I'd worked hard to get ready to engrave, and I couldn't get the stain off of it, I quit using it. So, what's your thoughts, Steve?
Uh, I have not ever tried it. I prefer to get the more natural look. And if I'm not liking the engrave, I might switch to a different kind of wood, or I will do if it really needs to be a high contrast, I'll do something either with an inlay or I'll stain or epoxy fill. I
Yeah.
The borax just seems really hit or miss as far as can you keep it, like you mentioned, it's just kind of burning, and if you don't get it sealed in place right, it kind of limits you on that. So not something that I really play with.
Rob, actually, yes. I have lots of suggestions. First of all, this is my DIY jig kit that I sell. It works with most every machine, but then I've got some specialized ones. But this machine cannot move. I don't know if you can tell in the corners of the machine. It's got the little brackets that hold it in place so that it can't move. And then I've got my jig adapter there as well. I also run a similar setup in here. Basically, it's exactly the same kit that I use in my large enclosure in Enclosure Zilla. And what it does basically is it takes the feet of the machine, sit in pockets or have brackets that kind of hold them in place so they can't move. Because when you start going at high speeds, the machine can slide, especially if you've got those metal feet sitting on a smooth furniture polished table or just a piece of plywood. Uh, I recommend it, and I got a buddy that I've just got started up with laser engraving, and I told him, he's got all my kit stuff. We took it over there and got it set up. You want the machine to be stationary. You do not want the machine to be able to move. You want the honeycomb or your cutting surface to be stationary, to not be able to move. And once you do that, it will make your life a lot easier for creating repeatable results with jigs and stuff. But yeah, if you go over to my channel, I've got plenty of kits. I used to do like just one kit for each machine, and I still do that with some. But then I had a lot of people that were like, "Hey, I've got like a Wayne Lux, whatever, and I really want to use your jig kit, but you don't have one that fits it." So I came out with the more or less a little DIY. It's basically just a bunch of parts that I've came up with that will work for most machines. It takes a little more thought from the user as far as how to put it together to make it serve your purpose, but it will work with basically any open gantry laser on the market today if you just do it correctly and use the right components from the little kit. Now you do have to mount the machine, get it stationary. Once you get the machine stationary, then you go back use the laser of the machine to make a mark on your wasteboard or whatever, and then line up the jig bar or the jig panel with it. And you'll look over here, you can see that in my enclosure, there's obviously there's a line where that little teeth right there line up with the edge of my honeycomb, and that way everything is square. But you have to kind of mark that with the machine and line that up and get it square. Just with that kit, because it does not uh, index off of the frame. It's a separate piece with that particular kit, but it'll work with an extended machine or shortened machine or whatever. It doesn't matter. But that's my recommendation, and I think you've used some of my stuff, Steve. Uh, Jigs are the way to go. I saw you. I saw you. You took one of my F1 jigs with you. You got the whole thing. When
Yeah.
you're developing
So if you're, if you're repeatedly doing the same thing, setting up a fixture like that's the way to go. But definitely securing the laser to whatever surface it's sitting on, and if you can, the honeycomb will make a huge difference. Um, Otherwise, I mean, if it's walking around a lot, I would also just double check that your frame is square and level, that the surface it's sitting on is level, um, and yeah, just make sure it's not running too fast. I haven't had too many freestanding ones start walking around unless something's a little out of whack. So I would just double and triple check that the frame and everything is sitting level as well, and that should help tame it down as well.
Yeah, a lot of the machines, like there was a couple of them that I've had that didn't put any kind of like friction enhancing material on the legs, so you had just had
Mm.
metal legs sitting on plywood, and of course it's going to move around. Uh, you adding rubber to the bottom of it would help, but it's still you start slinging that module around and doing stuff really fast, you could get some shifting. I just secure them. Every machine I've got in this building is secured in some shape, form, or fashion. So is the honeycombs. And then, of course, once you get the honeycomb secured, then you can use stuff like this to make your own little layouts. This this is the ones I used for my bamboo cutting boards that I was doing earlier today.
Yeah, and so the A24 in your portable clack shack, you have that
Mm-hmm.
basically fixed to the table, and then you fixed the honeycomb inside there with brackets and such, and then we kind of did the portable style on the board while I was down there. Again, both those are now fixed, which helps everything, and especially with that one has the integrated camera. Once you get it calibrated, then if everything's fixed and not moving, and that should stay as well. But it keeps it all portable. So um, any way you can add that kind of stationary fixing of things together, it's just going to make your setup a lot easier each time.
Yep. KC, appreciate it. Yeah, me and Steve, we kind of developed that while we were at Maymay's because we, uh, I was using the F1 and I was thinking I wouldn't need a jig kit for it, but then after using it a time or two, I'm like, you know what? I'm spoilt, and so I went ahead and we started actually building it and designing it there at the event, and cutting them out and using them. But it does make it a lot easier, especially transitioning from one item to the next to the next. Uh, but yeah, Steve's A24 is set up, like I said, basically the same way mine is. It just makes it easier, guys. When you know the machine can't move, you know the honeycomb can't move. All you got to do is index your material to the machine, and you know exactly where everything is going to go to. Yeah, check that out. We created that, and Steve was like, and I told him I was like, yeah, you could probably just carry it on the board. He's like, nah, but I see he figured out that it is actually very convenient. You almost need to make you a box lid to go over top of it now, Steve, and attach it
Yeah.
with some little clasps or whatever.
Well, that would add some weight to it, but it's working pretty well as is.
Yeah.
So here's a question that maybe we can both answer a little more now. Between the
Yeah.
xTool S1 or Rolly MK2, which is the best choice? So People have been asking my opinion of the Rolly Lasermatic lasers for a while, and I haven't been able to say anything other than, well, I've seen this information, or these are what other people that I trust have said. But, well, Dave left his shack unlocked while I was there a little too much, and I snuck in and got a chance to play around with his MK2 30 watt, and so I finally can at least have a little bit of experience with it, um, to better speak to it. And of course, both of us have an xTool S1 as well. So, um, best choice is gonna depend on how you're using it, and what you feel you need. You know, the MK2 is definitely a very nice design in your traditional form factor of about 400 by 400. They've got the camera built into the lid that works very well. They've got one of the best features on it is that the honeycomb is actually secured in place by some fixing pins that orient it to where the corner of the honeycomb, where it actually measures out as 0 and 0, is the home point of the laser. And so when trying to align things, you know that the honeycomb edge is square, you know that 0 0 is truly 0 0. That makes a lot of setup easier. It's kind of like a built-in jig itself, just for squaring. So, you know, in that realm, it's nice. It does have a bigger 4-inch exhaust port with a fan on the back. Now, Clack's temporary, you know, he uses that for a lot of his testing, so it's not ideal. He's got a lot of extra hose there, and so I think that maybe cuts down on it a little bit. But you know, you could easily adapt that for another fan. Um, However, it is kind of just the 400 by 400 work area right now in the MK2. The S1, it's got a little bit wider. You got about 20-inch by 12-inch work area. So it's a little bit bigger area, and they don't have a camera, but their positioning system using the crosshair actually works very well. And so when you have abnormal shapes, sizes of items, you can even kind of multi-point square that out, and it's going to give you the exact working area based on the laser itself. You know, now cameras, the further out from center you get, you're going to have a little bit extra variation. So even the best camera setups will have, you know, maybe a half a mil to maybe 2 millimeters of differentiation, depending on how far away from the center point that is. So, you know, there are issues with that. The S1 has their conveyor system, which I don't know that is the best, but that'll feed through larger items. Whereas the MK2, you'd have to make sure it fits into the 400 width, but then you could do the print and cut and slide it through manually and such. So there are different ways to deal with it. Both are, you know, both are established companies in this realm. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but there may be reasons why you would pick one or the other.
Yeah. Like you said, it's going to depend on what you're wanting to do with the machine. They both are very capable machines. Of course, if you're used to XCS and you like XCS, then you know that may be a factor for you. If you're used to LightBurn, then that may be something to consider as well. Although the S1 does work with LightBurn, you do lose a little bit of the functionality. They just recently made some changes to LightBurn, and they're starting to be a little more inclusive with some of the things that the S1 can do. But you're still not going to get the same as what you're going to get with the native software, because they're going to continue to evolve that to try to get the most out of their machine. So I wouldn't throw rocks at either machine. Like I said, it depends. If you're doing stuff that's 13 inches tall, then that's going to be a problem with the S1. If you're doing stuff that's 18 inches wide, you do have a pass through with the MK2, but you're limited to, you know, how wide it can be. So I mean, there's a lot of variables you need to consider. Both machines are very responsive as far as engraving speeds and stuff like that. The xTool will nudge cutting ability. It will nudge the Rolly out. The one major advantage, or well, I guess you could say two advantages that the xTool does have, if it's something that means a lot to you, is currently the only machine that I have in my shop that, well, I guess other than the P2, that you can actually tell it, I want air assist on level 2 for engraving, and I want it full blast for cutting, is the S1 because I got the smart air assist. And so that's a feature that currently, and I'm not saying it's not coming, but currently the MK2 does not have that feature. Uh, that's a that's a good thing for me because I like running air assist. Now I will say the way the MK2 is built, the fan on the module does help direct a lot of that smoke. It kind of acts as kind of a low power air assist in a way. And I've noticed that it runs a lot cleaner than some of the other machines because of the way they've got that cone design. So it's a toss up. There's a couple of little differences in the machines, but it's either one would be a good dependable machine in my book.
The other thing I would mention is if you if you go all out and you get the riser for the S1, and if you need this machine to be portable, that gets to be it's pretty wide and it starts getting kind of heavy too. So it's not going to be as portable as say the MK2 is. So if that's something that's concerning for you, like you can't have a dedicated spot for it or you want to be able to move it, the MK2 is going to be a little more portable for you.
Yeah, that's true. The S1 is a bit of a handle to try to carry around by yourself because it's
Yeah.
I don't know that it's heavy. It's just awkward because
Well,
you kind of bend over and lift it. And
yeah, and that's the thing is that it's a good 30 plus inches wide, and that riser base is it's all metal, so it all adds up. So it gets a little awkward. So
now, like I said, if tumblers is your game, I like the way they got this one set up for tumblers. So there's a lot of things to consider. Where are you going to put it? Where's it going to live? How much space do you got to sacrifice? I mean, there's a lot of considerations to be made.
now, I just want to clarify: the shop was left open.
Oh, the vandalism! Oh my gosh!
There was
the
no
vandalism.
breaking. There may have been some entering,
and there were
some
stickers.
things.
There were stickers.
Hey,
There's a sticker there. Okay.
nothing is permanently affixed.
There's a sticker in there. See that sticker right there? There's a sticker in there.
I don't think he's found all of them yet either.
You can't see that one. There's one back there, and there's another one right over the top of the CNC, right above my logo. You can see a little small Vintage Workshop sticker, like right there. And there's no telling how many more that I haven't found because they're black and white, so they kind of bend in. They kind of blend in around here.
I just wanted to make sure you had some spares in case, someone stopped by and they wanted some swag for me as well.
But y'all should have saw the look on his face when he thought I had put a 6-inch sticker on the back of his van. He didn't know it was a static cling. He looked at it like, did you seriously put a 6-inch sticker on my paint?
Well, and then he takes it off, and I end up coming home with nothing, no stickers, no pens.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted
no
it.
Shirts. Well, that one would have probably fallen off by the time I left the county.
Yeah, that one. I don't remember what it came from. I used it on something else, and it wasn't its stickiest.
Yeah. But no, there's definitely some Easter eggs around Clack's shop for him to find over the next little while.
There's no telling. Oh, I found a mouse, but I know who brought it in.
Yeah, well, that was your cat's.
Yeah. I come in here and I looked over and I'm like, there's a rat on the floor. And I was like, he is awfully still.
Mm-hmm. Rob's asking, is there a rule of thumb on the size of board should be mount your laser to? At least slightly bigger.
Than the laser.
It depends on what you're going for. If for going portable like this, I wanted to make sure it was just big enough to have, we put those little corner blocks in to support everything. But I was thinking of a portability, and I didn't want it any bigger or longer than it needed to be. So that one ended up by about just under 24 by 30 inches. Now, if it's a workbench area, I like to have some extra room because you might want to mount your air pump to one side or the other, and you might want to have your power strip accessible or other things. So there I'll be more of like, okay, I want some flexibility, and it's in the shop. I got some extra room. So, but the key thing is minimum size would be just slightly bigger, so you have some way of securing the laser in place to it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just say she's currently got the F1, wanting to upgrade to a full bed laser. Been looking at the MK2. Any other similar lasers I should look at? The MK, if you've only got the F1, the MK would fill in a big gap for you as far as stuff that you can do, cutting ability and convenience. And like I said, I've dealt with Leo and I've dealt with xTool. Leo, I basically had similar problems with two different machines. Leo was very responsive. He helped me get it fixed. It was a little easier with Leo, but I think it's because he knew my background. He knew what I know about lasers, and when I emailed the support at xTool, I didn't really tell them who I was. So I was going through the same channels everybody else does, and basically they said, try this, try that, try this. It didn't work. They're like, well, click this link, let me remote into it, look at the machine, dump the logs. Did that, and then they told me they felt like the board needed to be replaced, and they sent me a board. I swapped it out, and it's back working. So, my experience with xTool wasn't terrible. Even without, like I said, even without me going through, you know, channels that I have access to, or people think I do. I don't, but people think I do. If with me going through the same channels as everybody else, it wasn't terrible. No worse than trying to call AT&T about your phone bill. So.
But yeah, I mean, there's any number of lasers that we've looked at. That, like you say, the MK2 is a nice all-in-one. It would cover a lot of bases. The S1 gives you a little. We just kind of went through some of the variations for portability, but still having something a little bit better, nice for cutting. I think both of us have settled on the A series, the Atom Stack A series.
Mm-hmm.
They have everything from a 6 to our 24s, but I also noticed on their site today they've announced a pre-order for a 48-watt version. Now, that one's a little bit smaller. It's I think 350-ish square, so
Yeah,
you lose a little
it's
bit of
not as
working area.
big. Yeah, it's not as big, but I mean, portability, weight, like pound per pound performance versus weight, it's a hard to beat machine because I mean that little A24. Like I said, we ran it up there at Maymay's the other day. The enclosure is awesome because
Yeah.
it's eye catching. It looks cool. People like to see them when that laser is moving, and people just come over to see what's going on, and then they talk to you, and then they wind up wanting to buy something. I mean, it's a good little machine for events. And it is slightly lighter than this one because this one's a little bulkier engineered, which is a good thing, but it does make it a little heavier and a little harder to maneuver for me, for taking it to events. Now, if you only had one and you had this one wouldn't be a bad one for events, but I've got multiple machines to choose from, and I don't like having to take machines out of my trailer and bring back into the shop. I like to leave them out there so that when I get ready to go to an event, I know everything is there. I'm not going to show up at an event and be like, oh my gosh, I left my power cable, because it's in the trailer. I can't leave it. So.
But yeah, I mean, portability. I think the first machine you'd want to get is if you can, something that can do the dual, like the F1. You can do those anodized items. You can do some wooden items and such. Those you've found especially work really well. Stepping up to that then would be a bigger machine. But if you're looking for something portable, we've talked a lot about the F1, but I know other places have similar dual head machines that can offer a lot of flexibility in a small package for you.
Yeah, well, doing anodized stuff, the IR module on that F1 performs really, really well. I'd always use blue diodes at events, and you had to go kind of slow, and then the results were sometimes mixed. Sometimes, especially with the lighter colors, you couldn't see the contrast. But with that IR, like me and you were doing the other day, we were getting white engraves on all those things, and it looks really good. So I'm really pleased with the results of the IR module, and I am tired. Guys, it's been a long day. Midnight Sun, the lady that had it, she makes jewelry in town, and she's a jeweler, and she taught me into it. She's like, look, I'm a jeweler. I can always, if you mess it up, I can always fix it because that's what I do. And I'm like, you're not making me feel any better. And then just as I get it framed up and I'm about to hit the button, she's like, besides that, it's only like a $1,200 piece. And I'm like, oh, what? Uh-oh. But I wound up doing it. They were happy with it. Nobody's like got mad at me, so I'm good. It looked good. I am OCD, and it was a round text on a round object, and y'all know that is the hardest thing in the world to line up is a round text on a round object. But luckily, it was the size of quarters, and I may or may not have defaced a few quarters to test the burn before I put that $1,200 piece in there. Uh, there may be some quarters running around there with a real inspirational phrase on them right now, but we pulled it off, got it done, and she was happy. So, yep.
Very cool.
Tim, he may have very well put some stickers on the cats, but they had gotten them off by the time I got back. So I haven't found any. I hadn't seen any cats walking around with Ventari stickers on them yet.
No, I respect cats too much.
Now he did pet them a lot. Like they love Steve. Like they're normally not as approachable, but Steve would sit down over here and they would be cats climbing all over him.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, what can I
matter of
say?
fact,
I've had
he looked
cats
like
most of my life, so
he was wearing a T-shirt one day that looked like a sweater.
yeah.
Jim, I've been thinking about it, but I don't know. At this point, painting it would be an undertaking. I don't know. I've thought about it. Right now, it's just lumber tan. I did sand it when I built it, but I didn't paint it.
So Pop Pop's asking that does your S1 travel well in the trailer or alignment issues after a trip? Considered adding a folding table to my trailer to put a larger laser on. I have the F1 that I put in the booth. Now you haven't traveled with the S1 though.
No. No, I wouldn't see where it would hurt it as long as it wasn't bouncing, like getting slammed around. It wouldn't be a bad idea to probably use a rubber band or zip tie or some painter's tape or something to secure the gantry, to secure the module so that if you hit brakes and it's not just zipping back and forth. But I haven't, I haven't had a problem with that with any of my machines in the trailer. But I've only had the xTool D1 10 watt, xTool D1 20 watt, and now the Atom Stack A24. And I haven't had any issues with any problems as a result of traveling. But now my trailer is a dual axle box trailer, and it's not a rough ride for them as long as I don't get too crazy on the back roads.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of the big difference you've got there is that you've got a beefier trailer that's got better suspension. If you've got one of these smaller 5x8 or 6x10 single axle, that's kind of meant for carrying a certain weight. When you don't weight it down with enough, it's going to bounce around a lot, and that'll cause a lot of issues. I run into this a lot with model airplane because a lot of people will get their trailers and then they'll put these really light model airplanes in there, and their trailer just bounces down the highway, and then that just transfers into everything in there. So definitely consider that with the trailer is how you're weighting it down, and then you might want to add a little extra cushion for sensitive equipment in there, or add some weight to it to help that suspension. So
yeah, my little lawnmower trailer, I can hit a bump with it and it'll bounce off the ground. But that dual axle, see, I've got the dual axle, so even if I do hit like a little small bump, it does a good job of absorbing the impact. Plus, you saw it; it's a pretty bulky, heavy. I mean,
yeah,
I could drive a good size RTV or something up in the back of it, and it can handle it. It's got
yeah.
big wheels and tires and all that.
I have a single axle open frame trailer. It's a 5x8, and I went up to Rockler, which is it's about 50 miles away from me up in the Twin Cities to pick up my table saw. And there's one section of the highway there that I don't care what speed you go and what vehicle you're in, it just has that rhythm where it just starts. In a car you kind of feel it. Well, you get a trailer going and it just starts oscillating, and I'm like, I'm going to ruin this. I'm going to ruin this saw before I even get home. So,
Greg, I'm not sure I'm understanding. It says when I select something in my library, I can assign it to a layer on my MK2. Do you mean can't? And by library, do you mean the art library or the settings, uh, the material library? So if you could clear that up, maybe we can answer you. Oh, thank you, Verl. They're not really material specific. Just for rigidity, I would say 4 millimeter to 5 millimeter if you got it. If not, you could do more thinner, but you might want to do a few layers just to make sure they don't start twisting or warping on you.
Yeah, I
I
mean, I think
use
the
I use that 4.5 millimeter, but I also a lot of times I'll cut like spacers out of 1/8 inch material and glue into the holes to raise the material up out of that pocket a little bit. I think that's what you got, isn't it?
yeah, so I think that bottom plate is like you say, it's right around 5 millimeter thick. So I like to make a plug to fit in there to hold it tight, out of about the same thickness, and then your cutouts uh, really can be out of what material you need. I don't go any thinner than an eighth for most stuff, but I wouldn't also go too thick for other certain items. So I think if you get any of that, if you can find exactly some 5 millimeter Luan or something for your base area, that would work fine. And then anything between an eighth and a quarter for the top would do well.
Yeah. Yeah, you want it to sit down in there really good so it stays, it's secure, and it can't bounce out or move or anything like that. Uh, Belly Goat, I actually have the Niji 4 Max with the E80 module, 24 watt, and it's a hot little module for a 24 watt. And it has a long beam as far as like the focal length, so it gives you a lot more standoff from the material than some machines do. It's a good machine. The Niji 4 Max, up until the A70 showed up here in the shop, the Niji 4 Max and the Two Trees TS20, I think it was, were the only two Z-axis machines that I actually liked to use. The rest of the Z-axes on the Eitzers and all that, it just drove me nuts. Kind of like Steve said about the IKEAs that he has. I could never get the Z-axis to cooperate with me on those machines. Whether it was me, whether it was the machines, I don't know. But the Niji that I have, the 4 Max, it actually has the Z-axis works really, really similar to the way the A70 does. Other than it doesn't have a probe. You set it based on, you basically zero it to the spoil board or the work area, and then you just add the thickness of your material plus the height above there to set the Z. It's a little different, but it works. It works well. Be right back. I got to walk to the door for a minute.
Um, let's see what else we got here. How often do you clean your atom stack module? So, kind of every single laser is going to be kind of different depending on what I'm cutting and how that laser itself kind of circulates the air and how I have it in the enclosure. If I'm doing a really dirty job, so it might be a real heavy smoky engrave type thing, I'll actually, if it runs for a while, I might just pop the module off and take one of my foam swabs and just kind of clean it off real quickly. As far as deep cleaning, though, that is, I take some of that from more visual cues. I'll inspect the top of the module or the sides. If the fan looks like it's getting kind of dirty or if there's kind of soot building up on the bottom, I might take it apart and spend the time to do a little more cleaning on that. But there again, there are certain materials, certain processes that are far messier and that'll happen sooner. And others, I mean, I could run a full day and it hardly looks like the module's been touched at all. So I do it from visual cues, both of did I see a lot of smoke and debris in the enclosure or am I seeing it on the module itself? So this is the ever so important question. Is the orange Auburn or Tennessee?
Neither.
It's ash blonde, right?
Yeah, technically. Uh, when I first got out of high school, the first job I ever had when I turned 18, matter of fact, on my 18th birthday, I went to work with Asplin uh, Tree Expert Company, which by no means are some of those guys experts. Uh, but I worked there for a long time, and I got used to wearing the orange shirts. And then, as I got older, of course, I started getting lawnmowers and tractors and stuff like that, and I fell in love with Kubota. And then, so after a while, I decided I want to get a sawmill, and so I wound up with the Wood-Mizer. And Steve got to see it the other day. It matches my shirts, so it's almost as if the world has been pointing me in the direction of that color, and so I match my tractor, I match my sawmill. It's just I like the color. Also, when I'm out in places or whatever, I kind of think that it has it helps me to be identifiable. So I've adopted it as my new color. It used to be the OD green color, but I'm gonna be honest with you, it never really. I like the OD green, but I guess because of what I've done for the past 25 years, I've just kind of lived past that. I'm ready to go with some high vis orange now. Plus, if I decide to walk up the hill and go hunting during the day, I'm good. I've got my orange on. So, it's just I like the color, and my filament in my 3D printer is orange. I would show y'all my little SD card holder again, but yeah, everything I'm printing now is orange too. It's just I don't know.
See, I just figured, it's like that, orange safety cone. It's like a warning to others, like caution.
Yeah. Well, now it could be considered that. Yeah, there may be part of it. Uh, trying to go through these comments.
All right. Oh, that's not good. There's a question about the A24 in lenses. So I was just going to take a quick look at this. Just got to take it apart.
Well, Chris, the cats don't wear collars. My cats are barn cats and outdoor cats, and they run in the woods and jump through fences and stuff like that all the time. And when they're trying to evade coyotes outside, it's my fear that if I put collars on them, they'll get hung up trying to escape from something and wind up lunch. So my cats just run around in their birthday suit.
Well, my indoor cats don't have collars either. So
Yeah, well, mine, like I said, it's nothing to see them 20 foot up in a tree out there chasing chipmunks. So squirrels or whatever. So last thing I want to do is have to climb a tree and get a cat down because he got hung by his collar. So. Hey, Bobby said he got some of them shirts. That's right. Hey, I worked there a long time, and it was hard work. When I went to work there for like $7 an hour back in '93, it was hard work. I did manage to move up to crew foreman pretty quick. I was a machine operator for several years, running the big machines that they use with the booms that trim the lines. Wound up getting my own crew, ran it because they found out if they ever find out that you know how to run machines, they're going to put you to running them. Well, then when they find out that if they break, you can fix them, they're going to give you your own machine. Because I could run the machine and repair it when it tore up, they basically went and bought me a semi to haul it with, a pickup truck to use to run around with it, and just sit me out into the world to trim trees all day. I used to go to like Ocala, Florida. They would bid work out and have a bid job, and I was one of the few crews in our area that actually was offered bonuses. So like if I went and trimmed a line, they would tell me what my cost per mile was, and if I stayed below that cost per mile, then I would get a commission, like a bonus from my crew. And instead of me keeping the bonus, because I wanted my guys to help me do it, I talked to my guys and I'm like, hey, don't tell my supervisors about this because I'm not supposed to tell you guys. But if we can make this much miles every week, we'll get like an extra $600-700 at the end of the week. They want me to keep it, but if you'll help me do it, I'll split it with you. And so we started splitting the bonuses, and like, everybody else's crew would take lunch break, and like all three guys would pile up in the truck and eat lunch. My guys were like, "No, boss, we got to swap out." So we would swap out, and we'd keep that machine running through lunch to try to make that extra money. And then on payday, I would just cash the check and give them their cut of the bonus. And all the other foremen were like, "Man, how are you getting these big bonuses?" I can't get my guys to work hard enough because you're not giving them any of the money.
All right. So I just checked this, and unfortunately, this has a 12 millimeter lens on it. So my lenses are going to be able to touch too big for them. And I believe this is going to be similar with the new 40 watt and possibly the 70 watt. I'll have to check those because they have a similar style lens on there. So
somebody's going to be retooling.
We'll see.
Hey, it's a conspiracy. They're like, we'll make that guy quit selling lenses. We'll change the size of them.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to see if I can find something the right size for that or another source. But yeah, I just measured the actual glass lens on there. It's 12 millimeters exact, and the inside cap is just a hair under 12 and a half. So
yeah. Timber Falls. That's a question people ask me all the time, and the winner would be that machine right there, because as I stated earlier, I sell a boatload of those stove covers, like you see propped up against that toolbox right there, and no other machine in this shop is as well suited to do them as Enclosure Zilla and the X40 Max right there. So, and it all boils down to me, which machine can I make the most money with? And if I had to pick one, all the smaller machines are gone, because even though it's a 40 watt, not a 70, the work area enables me to do more projects because I can do small stuff on this machine. But so if I had to keep one, that would be it, because that's the one that makes it. That's my bread and butter. Making those stove covers.
Well, now if we're talking machines, I'm gonna have to go with the table saw.
Well, they said lasers.
No, it said machines.
Well, I know what they meant, but I'll actually let me show you. Let me show you over here. Let me go crank this up right quick. Show you the magic. That is why that machine gets to stay, because I can put that in there. I've got a file already configured. I've got the stove cover has got its own jig built into the enclosure. All I got to do is open the file, make sure the text is correct, and send it. I don't have to do any setup. I ain't got to measure the center of the machine, the center of the board. All I got to do is open the file and hit send, and that's what I do with those. So, just like if matter of fact, here we go right here. So if I can't home the machine. I done put this one together. Dang it. It'll hit the side rails if I do that. I'm not raising the module up. But you get the idea. That's what I use this machine for. Every week I make 4 to 5 of those on this machine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get the spirit of the question, but I mean, if I had to pick one of my CNC type machines, it would probably be the Onefinity, and then I would still put a laser module on it, because then I would have the best of both worlds in both milling and lasering. But I've, always liked to have, when possible, more purpose-built machines. You know, the CNC is set up for milling, the lasers are set up for, you know, engraving and such. As far as lasers, yeah, you know, I mean, I did a lot with my CO2 for the longest time, and it was very flexible for a lot of reasons. You know, my the thing that's buried right there right now with stuff. Um, so if I had to have just one laser, it would probably be a CO2 type, just because in the past I have done a lot of mixture between clear acrylic and wood and other things. Um, but you know, if we're just talking the diode machines, out of the ones I have, I don't know. Right now, it'd probably be a toss up between the X40, the wide one like you've got, or the S1. You know, both of those have done a lot of work for me recently as far as stuff. I like the width. I always like having that width. Um,
Yeah.
you know, same thing with my CO or with the CNC machine. When I was able to extend it wider, I did. I'm not so worried about the depth, um, but having that width opens up a lot more opportunity for me. So in this
Yeah. Now
case,
I
size
wasn't throwing
matters.
the CNC in that thing because I mean, yes, I can put a laser module on mine as well, but that machine's made to do what it does. It's made for CNC work, and I can get a lot less expensive machine to do laser engraving with than tying that one up. Uh, Today I was using it as a table. Normally every day that I'm out here, I've got something running on that machine. But today I just didn't have any projects that I wanted to do, and I needed the table space because I had 9 stove covers going together. So I had all my raw materials setting up there, and as I would make them, I just stack them up, and then I'd bring them over, and I stayed. I put the finish on 4 of them, put them outside because that's all my sawhorses outside will hold. Let them dry, and then I bring them in, put the feet and the handles on them, and I'll deliver those the next day or two, and then I'll do 4 more finishes, put them outside, let them dry, and then deliver those, and hopefully by the end of the week I'll have all 9 of those delivered. And that'll make for a nice little end of the month check.
But yeah, I mean, when someone says if you can have only one machine, you know, then that's when I start looking at versatility. Where versus if I can have multiple
Yeah,
machines, then that's where I start going, okay, well, this one is great at XYZ. Now, if you want, you know, if you're primarily doing smaller engravings, a diode is going to be your friend. Diodes burn different than CO2. They're almost a little less efficient. They get a little more caramelization. They get a little darker engraved than CO2. But if you want to do a lot of cutting, then sometimes it's, you know, so that's where you kind of get into the right machine for the right job when you have the opportunity, the space, the resources to be able to do that.
yeah. But yeah, it's like I said, I like having all of them because just like today, I had this guy over here engraving stove covers, had that guy over there cracking out bamboo cutting boards, and then I'm over here on the table sanding my tail off. Like I went through like 10 sheets of sandpaper today. It was ridiculous. Uh,
Maybe you need better sandpaper.
James, I just use a rattle can because I am not good with a brush, and it's quicker. So if you buy rattle cans, they're easy. Which I gotta buy more. This ain't gonna work. But yeah, fast drying, bin wax. It's a little more expensive, but I'll spend more money if it saves me enough time. So doing it this way is now. If I was doing 30 or 40 of them, I'd probably put the poly in my sprayer and spray them with the sprayer and do it that way. But then I got to clean the sprayer, and that takes time. So typically, this is my friend right here because they don't want them glassy. They don't want them to look like they've got plexiglass or glass over top of them. They want them to look rustic. So the only thing I'm worried about is just a little bit of this stuff right here, just to keep the moisture from wicking into them as bad. Hopefully, they're going to be in new construction homes. There won't be a moisture problem, but you know that's all I worry about. I think somebody's talking about your slightly pale rendition of me back there.
Yeah, well, I need to move that thing because when I'm coming in and out of the garage door, loading and unloading stuff, I catch it out of my eye and go, there's someone in here.
At least he's a good-looking fella.
Yeah, that's why I jump and I'm startled.
Ah! Somebody beheaded Steve on a stick.
Oh, good job. See, mine's easier.
Yeah, but you know, see, you help me out with my videos sometimes. Here, hang on. There he is. He's a bit of a. Look,
Yeah, but
he's a bit
okay, yeah, but you got to have it. It's got to be higher to be realistic.
No, that's
'cause,
about right.
You know,
that's about right.
no, that's about 6 inches too short.
Oh.
Jim's asking, any luck getting darker engraves with the xTool P2? I struggle sometimes getting dark enough engraves, especially on bamboo. I would try raising your focus maybe about 2 or 3 millimeters and try playing with that. Sometimes the getting it too point focused, it's got too efficient of a burn, and defocusing just a little bit will actually cause a little less of efficient burn and might get a little bit darker with you. So play around with that a little bit, but that's one good trick to it.
Boom, boom, boom. No, no additives, no nothing. Straight off the laser, right there. 2 millimeters elevated focus, air assist, and the right speed and power setting. Now, a lot of times when they come off of the machine, you will have a little bit of like this white powdery stuff. I don't have my air hose over here, but I can spray that off with the air, and it's not as light as it looks. But if you clean it, matter of fact, let me clean this or something.
Now, which machine were those done on?
MK2.
Okay, so it's not the P2.
Similar results though. The P2, the CO2s, like Steve said, they don't tend to burn and give you that brown or black look as much. If you raise the focus up, like Steve said, it will give you a little more. So there it is with the white stuff marked off of it. Some bamboo is not going to bark as dark as other, but yeah, I get pretty good results, and that's at like 250 millimeters a second with the MK2.
And I just stay away from bamboo because I hate its inconsistency. So more power to anybody who can actually get it running well.
Well, here's the thing. This is a commercial customer, and every stove cover I sell, I also sell them a cutting board. And my profit margin on the cutting boards is substantially more than that on the stove covers. So it's they requested bamboo.
I just never get a consistent, across it. So for me, I just can't, I'm not happy with it. They might be happy with it, but I'm not. So I stay away from it anymore. Unless it's really small. Like the bamboo pens, that's one thing because you don't get a lot of variation in those. But when you get the different layers of it, it's too inconsistent for me.
Yeah, they requested bamboo. That's what they wanted. That's what they got. And I buy them like 100 at a time, so I can get them as cheap as I can get them. And if I have a bad one or two that doesn't look good, then I can toss them, and it's minimal loss. I think my cost on those is a little over $4 a piece, so that gives me a good wiggle room as far as getting some profit out of them.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Anything that's going to be cut, like people's going to be putting food on, I do not put paint, poly, or anything, any kind of chemicals on there. If I put anything, it's going to be just straight up mineral oil, butcher block oil, that kind of thing. And these, primarily, I assume they'll be decorative, but you never know. And so, just to be safe, I don't put anything on them. I just wash them in the sink and dry them, and off they go. Yeah, I'm running my LPI a little bit higher, but now keep in mind I'm also raising the focus 2 millimeters, and so there's a dynamic. Hobo did some testing the other day after seeing my video that I did on engraving the bamboo, and if you play with the settings, you can get better results. Bamboo is going to have inconsistencies between the different materials that are sandwiched together, but you can get some really good results if you play with the settings. But you got to be willing to sacrifice a couple of boards to the cause. Uh, but yeah, you just gotta be willing to sacrifice them. And there's some of my testing that I've done, different varying results, as well as some on the back. And this is like my third test board because every time I swap from one machine to the other, I have to retest to make sure I'm getting the right results. And you can see that one there. But yeah, and then that was with the EG4 Max, matter of fact. So yeah, I got bunches of these. Once they fill up completely, I toss them. But I typically buy them in boxes of 20, and I'll buy 3 boxes at a time normally. I've got just enough room to stack them up over there. I can't assign a material. Can't assign a material setting in my material library. I highlight it, but it's assign is grayed out. I don't think you're deep. You're not going deep enough. Is my guess. Hang on, let me get my LightBurn open, and we'll go over to that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so if you set a shape or whatever in your workspace, and you go down to the library right here, if you just click right here, it's not gonna let you assign. You have to go all the way down to where it has the little color chart, and then you'll have the option to assign. So once you save those, if you just click here, or if you just click here, it's not going to let you assign it. You have to click all the way in to where the little shape is showing. So just make sure you're clicking deep enough, because I think what you're doing is you're not clicking past here, because once you click past here to there, then it'll give you the option. So hope that helps.
Jim's asking about epoxy on cutting boards. And that's generally a big no-no unless you clearly label them as for decorative use only.
Yeah, I burned it on the back of them.
Because if they're used with cutting, the thing is as it's the knife's cutting off that epoxy, that's going to chip and crack, and then you can get resin shards into the food and such. So that's why it's generally a no-no. So there again, if you're going to do it, be very clear with the product. Send a card, burn it onto the backside, something that says this is for decorative use only and such like that.
Yeah, now you like charcuterie boards, if they're not going to be cutting on them, I see a lot of people using acrylic stuff or epoxy stuff. I mean, it's technically fiberglass resin, so use your own discretion, I guess. But yeah, anything that if I do something, whether it's paint, whether it's clear coat, whatever it is, if there's something on there that you don't want to be eaten, I'll flip it over on the backside and put on there, for decorative purposes only. Do not use for food service. If they do, that's on them. It's not on me. It's burned into the piece, so they can't say they weren't warned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Jack, yeah, if the customer requests it and they're happy with it, you're right. Just collect the check and smile. But
Yeah.
that's, yeah, where we tend to be our own worst critics. And so when I'm not happy with something, I struggle with, putting it forward as a product for someone to buy. So that's on me as far as that. But, it's, you're right. If the customer requests it, they're happy with it, just smile, nod, say, okay, awesome. Glad you're happy with it. And be happy for the sale.
The only other thing, make sure your layer is turned on there. Who was that? Greg, make sure the layer's set to output. I can't make mine do that, so I don't know what the deal is. I just went over and tried that. So, well, Mark says
Yeah.
plastic cutting boards are used all the time, but I mean, like I said, it is what it is. Some materials are made not to necessarily splinter as much as they just
Yeah.
scratch.
They tend to be,
Acrylic can splinter.
yeah, they tend to be HDPE, which is kind of like the milk carton material and such. It's a little more pliable, a little more flexible, so it's not as likely to crack and chip off. And yeah, epoxy is technically food safe. Once it is fully cured, but the concern on a cutting board is that you're going to end up with those small fractures and such. So, I personally wouldn't want a sliver of hardened resin trying to navigate its way through my, digestive system. So, not to say that it can't be done or that it isn't done, but as a person who's in business and could be held liable, I would make sure you're protecting yourself and not recommending it when it's to be used for food, or at least say like a charcuterie board. This is only for food serving, not for prepping or something like that. Just to cover it. So and the other part is why would you want to cut up a really decorative board? Most people are going to want to display that versus, and they've got their stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I do, like I said, if it's got something on the front, a lot of people will hang them on the wall, and then they use the backside for cutting up stuff, and then when they hang it up, they hang out the decorative side. So, but I don't do a lot of like cutting boards per se with stuff on them. Now, charcuterie boards, I've paint inlaid those and this, that, and the other, but typically those the logo is going to be off to the side so that they can put the little biscuits or whatever in the middle and then still be able to see the logo. But like I said, just like Steve said, just make sure whatever you do, put on there that it contains whatever. And if they do it, they do it. If they don't, they don't. I mean, you're not going to be able to control what people do with it. You just want to make sure that they've at least been notified of what's on there.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it out. Layer wasn't selected. So, yep, that'll do it. If it wasn't set to output, or if you didn't have it clicked, that definitely would cause a problem, because you have to tell it what layer you want to do it to, and you have to make sure that the layers even exists. Technically, if it's not outputting, could cause it to. Yep. Yeah, that's true. Like I said, it's just one of those things. To each their own. Me personally, I probably would never know it unless it was a significant shard, because I eat really fast. But it's just kind of like cooking. Is it salmon to cook on the cedar planks or whatever?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, that all that cedar sap or whatever getting on that wood. It's just, who knows. But I try to avoid. Like I said, I try to at least let people know when stuff's finished. If they want to use it, that's fine. That's their prerogative.
So, speaking of all of our people down in Florida, we do have our laser engraver community map. And if you'd like to see all those, you can definitely check out the link down below in each of our videos. And if you'd like to drop a pin on there, we have a form linked there as well. You can fill out your name, your username, your business name, and whatever you want for address, as long as Google Maps can register. It could be a city and state. It can be, if it's a landmark, say like Mount Rushmore. If it can find it on the map, it'll put a pin there for you. So we like to use it just to kind of see where all our listeners and viewers are at. And if you want to be on there, we'd invite you to fill out that form and drop your pin out on the map. We've got all 50 U.S. states covered. We've got, I'm trying to see here. We've got a number of the Canadian provinces covered, and we're a growing contingent in Europe as well. So we'd love to see that map fill out. So check out that link. I do manually update it, so it won't necessarily appear right away, but I try to check it a few times throughout the week and definitely a few times during the live stream. So just wanted to make sure we got our plug in for that, and hope to see that map continue to grow.
Yep. Yeah, somebody said purple wood's toxic. Believe it or not, black walnut has a certain level of toxicity. Now you've got to get you got to get a good bit of it for it to affect you. But I've actually been sick from milling black walnut. The first time I milled some, I didn't even know it was a thing. I had just got my sawmill. Went up there, milled for like half a day. Later that afternoon, I started just feeling nauseous and like had a little bit of a fever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Next day, my nose was running off my face, throat was raw, and then shortly thereafter is when I realized that there's some woods that, especially on a sawmill, it's in your best interest to wear a dust mask when you're messing with it. Cedar's another one that cedar will make your nose run off your face and you start sneezing, and for like 2 days you'll sneeze. So those two, especially if the wind's blowing just right, I make sure I wear a dust mask. But luckily, and Steve may have noticed it the other day, the way my mill's set up, the wind typically comes out of the west. So it typically blows the dust like towards the mill shop. But occasionally that wind will come across there, come across that berm, and it'll blow it right up in your face. And it just gets, it's not as bad if you have a good sharp blade, but when blades start getting dull, it generates a lot more dust. But yeah. So I'm even careful when I'm resawing black walnut on the on the bandsaw over here. A lot of times I'll put my mask on just to be sure.
Yep. Another reason for good dust extraction on any wood cutting machines as well. Just to cut that down.
Yeah, I gotta upgrade my sanding operation. It looks like it snowed in here. Like everything's covered in white dust.
Well, we're rolling up close to 2 hours, so if you have any last minute questions or comments, now's the time to get them in. So
Greg's saying it. One more. He's always having trouble centering graphics in a circle or a rectangle. Greg,
is that an existing one or within the design?
That's what I'm wondering. Is he talking about something he's trying to design, or the bullseyes? That's the way to go. The little bullseye button. That's the simplest way. I think there's a shortcut too. I don't ever use them. What is it? C, Alt C or something? Alt something. Let's see. Let me hover over it and see what's a.
It doesn't show.
Oh. Well. Let's see here. You gotta have two shapes, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't tell you what the shortcut is on that one. But you can use the little bullseye button up top. That's the easiest way and quickest way. And whichever one you select first is the one that you're going to move. Hang on, we get back over here. I'm gonna go back over here. All right, so let's take that out of here. We'll do animals. Animals for 3, Alex. Well, there we go. Let's say we had a fish. All right, and we had this big square. I'm assuming this is what you're talking about in file design. And we had this square, and we had this fish. If you if you like just drop him in here, you're never going to know where he's at. Make sure your object is grouped. All right. Once it's grouped, click it first. Click the object in which you would like to align it with second. And then hit the bullseye. And boom. There you go. Works the same with circles. You got to click the object that you want to move because you could literally have this guy over here. And then hold control, click the square, hit the bullseye, he's in the center. So that is the easiest way to do that I'm aware of, unless you want to use the little shortcut. There you go. I'm gonna be honest with you. Had enough asking about the version 12 update on VCarve. It's really I haven't really needed any of the extra features yet. Uh, they moved some stuff around, but for the most part, it's about the same. But some of the added features that they've put in there, I haven't got to use. But I do like the update. Oh, some of the stuff that they said that it can do now, and they've added, a VCarve functions to inlays and some other stuff. I mean, it's. I mean, I haven't found anything bad about it. They didn't break it. I'll put it to you that way. It seems to be just as good as it was before. So. Yeah.
Well, I just paid for the update today, so I haven't got a chance
Woo-hoo.
to. I just downloaded it before the show while I was doing a few other things, so I'm hoping to get some time playing with it. As a matter of fact, I have a little Genmitsu wireless control kit to put to the 6050, so I'll be setting up some jobs with version 12 and trying to run them through the Genmitsu with that. So a little more content on that machine coming this way.
Greg, sometimes it's the simple things that get us, buddy. No doubt. It gets me sometimes as well. You'll get the hang of it, but like I said, I know some guys that have lots of content where they make files and design files. So feel free to watch all you want. That's some of the stuff that that I cover and Steve covers, and there's lots of other guys out there as well. Of course, we're a little biased. We would rather you watch our stuff than somebody else's, but yeah,
Well, I
just
mean,
hey, if just get in there, have fun, and make stuff. I mean, that's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to pick these things up. But never be afraid to ask.
I mean, we just we want them to watch ours first, and then feel free to watch others as
Well, that's
well.
what I meant. Once you've watched all of ours, feel free to go watch somebody else's. But no, it's pretty cool.
So had enough. This actually it plugs into the controller on the CNC machine, and then it'll allow me to use an app on the phone to do it. But you got to transfer the files via SD card, as far as I understand. I haven't played with it yet. I'm not 100% sure that that's true, but it does basically take the having to have a computer and software set up out of the equation. So I'm curious to see how it works. I think if at that basic level, it'll possibly simplify things on that machine. So we'll see. Hopefully I'll get to play with that here in a couple days, and we'll find out how it affects that machine, good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah. Timber Falls. Like I said, I haven't used any of the new add-ons that they've got. I do have the VCarve Pro. I don't have Aspire, so I wouldn't know about that part. But my projects right now are still kind of basic. I'm just slowly moving up into the more complicated stuff. I did the bowl the other day. The next step is to do a two-sided bowl so that I can have it convex on one side, concave on the other. But I've got to build a jig for that, and I've got to block my material out and make the jig and all this kind of stuff. But I'm just slowly moving myself into the more complex stuff. So as I do, I'll probably get to use more of those tools. But it's gonna be a little while before I get into all that. Because I really liked the little bowl the other day, but I wanted the other side to be rounded. and I've been doing some research on how to do it, best practices, how everybody else does it, and then of course I'll take like 5 different people's way of doing it, modify it, and call it my own. Because I can't do it the same exact way. Because sometimes I see things that I think would make it easier for me, and that I want to try and change and do a little differently. But anyway, well, it is 2 hours and 5 minutes, guys. Back to the old grind tomorrow. I don't know about Steve, but I've got to go back to work. Are you? You still playing hooky, or you got to go back to work?
No, I've got a couple extra days off, so I'll be trying to get caught up in the on. Like I say, I got the A70. It's sitting right back here. Gonna finish up some video work with that and do a few more things before I got to jump back at it on Wednesday. So
This is just a guess, but guys, while Steve was down here, I walked in the shop one day and I caught him in my enclosure that I've got my A70 in, and he had this measuring stuff. So I'm thinking he's probably going to be making him an enclosure for that thing. And I bet I know some of the design traits that that machine is going to have, that box is going to have. I'm pretty confident that I know.
you think so, huh?
You're up to something.
I'm up to something. What do you mean I'm up to something?
You're doing something. I can see it in your glasses.
What do you... All right. Well, let's see here. Is it this one? There we go.
See, told you guys. Corporate
Hey,
espionage. Corporate
talking about this?
espionage. That's what that was. I can't wait to see what it looks like. Are you gonna put like rabbits in there for the to match everything, marry everything together? Or are you just gonna cut them and put them together?
No, I think this one's going to be fairly simple. I'm actually, I'll probably do a video on this, and I will try to use the easiest form of constructing this. So,
Skill saw.
skill saw or jigsaw. I mean, I might show that cut. I mean, I've got other tools to do them, but you should be able to build this with like a skill saw, scroll saw, and a drill, maybe some wood glue if needed, but mostly just screw together, cut out with basic powered hand tools. I'm not going completely old school on this.
You're not gonna go. You're not gonna get down there and chew on it like a beaver.
Yeah, no. Just to kind of give the idea of like you can build this. It's not difficult, and the key there too is that what I see people get hung up on is that they try to make everything perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect.
The more perfect it is, the more you're going to have to add air intake.
Well, I mean, there is that to it. Yeah.
That's my buddy Billy. You met him the other day. That's the enclosure that he built. He built that enclosure himself and done a really good job on it. Such a good job that he told me today the only problem he was having was it wasn't venting properly. But then he realized it was because he did such a good job building it that he had to like open it up and let some more air into it because it couldn't draw enough air to evacuate the smoke. He's actually doing some pretty cool stuff. He's gotten in it with both feet. He's making him some little projects and stuff. Sending me pictures during the live. So I'm hoping to get a chance to sit down and talk to Bill because like literally he's only been doing this a couple of weeks. Like, and he's been spending most of the time setting his machine up. So I want to get his opinion. He's running a SculptFun S30 and SculptFun iCube right now is the two machines that he's got at his house that he's using. So, it'd be another insight into the learning curve and so forth. So, what's Miss Sharon saying? Is she having a problem?
Having trouble cutting through some, what was it?
Check your focus, Miss Sharon.
Yeah, it was 3mm MDF.
Check your focus, Miss Sharon. With this focus tool, it has steps on it, and this, if you're doing 3mm, this first little step right here You probably don't need it, but this is actually supposed to be the cutting uh, level for up to quarter of an inch. So that may actually help you a little bit to go to this one. This is for engraving, which my experience it works for cutting too. But that and the like Chris told you there, the S value, make sure the S value is set correctly. I don't recall anybody having problems with the S value on the 30 watt, but I mean it's possible. My first thing to check would be the focus. Just make sure your focus is right. All right.
Well, we've officially gone 10 minutes over.
Yeah, yeah. If it's MDF can be tough too, depending on the glue they use.
Well, there's MDF and then there's like hardboard. And yeah, the darker stuff tends to be more hardboard, and good luck getting through that with anything other than a CNC router. You want the lighter, the real lighter colored stuff. So
I bet the lightsaber could do it.
you'd be surprised on some of that. So like Menards used to have full 4x8 sheets of 1/8 inch MDF, and I'd buy those real cheap. I'd cut them down. This is when I first got the laser. But then they switched to hardboard in that, and that's that real heavy resin.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like a waffle pattern on the back. It's just really
Yeah.
bad. It just you can't cut through it. So it could be material based as well, depending on, because sometimes they still label it as MDF when it definitely is not.
Yeah, I think I saw some of that at Home Depot the other day too. It's that real dark, almost chocolate colored stuff that
Yeah.
you can tap it with a screwdriver and you can tell it's more plastic than it is wood.
Hmm.
All right, guys. That's about it for tonight. Like I said, we went a little bit over, but Steve's back home, and hopefully things will get back to normal for him. Work week starts for me again tomorrow. So, yeah. And I am sleepy. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Lots of stove covers and stuff being made. So yeah, we gotta get cleaned up, get ready for bed, and go get ready for work tomorrow. But we'll see y'all Sunday night. I've got a few machines that will possibly, and I'm not going to say for sure because I'm still kind of negotiating with folks. Uh, I had cut back on a lot of the reviews, but I've got some companies that I've worked with over the past couple of years that have always been real easy to work with, and they have some cool equipment and some cool machines. So I've actually taken a machine that I normally wouldn't take, but it's because the company's usually does some pretty cool stuff, and they got some affordable machines for folks that are just starting out, maybe they just want an extra machine for engraving. So I've got one of those that's probably going to be coming, and a couple of more that we're still kind of negotiating with. So hopefully there'll be some pretty interesting content coming up. And once I get these stove covers caught up, I can get back to doing more project stuff. But everything we've had going, it's been a little hectic. So, Steve, what's going on at the Ventari's workshop in the next week or two?
Yeah. Similar with you. Been trying to. I mean, I'd hoped to get the A70 out before I came down, but just was too busy. So finishing that up. Got this new. Like this is an add-on to an existing machine. So kind of curious to see how that is, but wanting to get some stuff out with that and some other CNC work. But been talking with a few companies about some things coming out. I'll try to not be too heavy on, but always like to get information out on some of these. I try to make sure that I'm running real world tests on stuff to make they all say we want you to talk about our features. I said, well, I'll test them and they better be accurate because otherwise I'm going to say, yeah,
Yeah,
no, I can't do that. So
yeah,
so yeah, definitely some more of that, but we'll see. We've got I gotta see how crazy work's been the week and a half I've been gone and whatnot. But definitely looking forward to spending some more time out here on projects.
yes, sir. Greg, I've thought about it, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't have orders for any right now. I've been giving most of my tumbler orders to Klein. He's been doing those. So, I mean, I'm not against it. I might order a couple because people have asked me about it, but I'll have to put that on the list. I've got quite a list going right now, so we'll see if I can get around to it. I figure the handled craze, the Stanley craze, will probably play out. Maybe, maybe not. If the Stanley craze is still going around Christmas, I figure I'll probably get some jobs and have to do them anyway. And that's how a lot of my content. I do it because I'm doing stuff for jobs, and I'm just kind of showing you guys how I go about it. So that's when you'll probably see that, because that's the only reason I'm going to buy a $45 cup and just engrave all the coating off of it. So it's if I'm going to turn a profit off of it. But anyway, guys, until next time, y'all, good deal, Mike, by the way. Glad you got it going. But y'all have a good night, and be safe. Steve?
See ya.
Steve on a stick says good night, too.